Good Friday morning, friends. Welcome to another episode of the Finding God in the Dark podcast. My name is Don,
And my name is Jonathan.
and today we are looking at this is a 2025 film, right?
Yes.
The 2025 A24 film called Friendship. You'll find it on HBO Max right now. Um, Starring Paul Rudd
Yep.
as Primero. I mean, he's like the one big name everybody will know, right?
Yeah.
Um, I Okay. For those who don't know a whole lot about movies, and look, I'm no expert. Jonathan's much more of an expert than I am on movies, but um well, look, I love movies. I
Yeah.
just don't study them, right? But the thing is, I knew A24 as a company that made at least originally made their name by doing kind of low budget,
Yeah.
high quality horror films.
Okay.
Things like The Witch,
Yeah.
among others. This is an A24 film. It is not a horror film.
Nope.
It is a comedy of errors,
Yeah.
maybe.
Mhm.
It's weird, okay? That's what I wanted to say before we started recording. This film is weird.
I figured that would be that would be what, and I agree. It is weird. I don't disagree with your assessment.
And I love, again, I want to say how much I appreciate, Jonathan, that you do this, you do the work on these and you send a list of ideas and thoughts, themes, scenes to talk about. To me, and this was glaring throughout the film, to me, the biggest theme in this is the lack of boundaries
Yes.
because almost everyone in this film has no boundaries. it's,
Yeah.
it's literally, I mean, you want to call it a comedy of errors. That is why,
Yeah.
because nobody, okay, talk about it. Just,
Yeah. Yeah. So it's a movie about friendship, but also about the main character really is Craig, and he clearly has trouble making connections and making friendships, and that's one of the issues in his marriage with Tammy. Uh,
he is literally, I mean, he is so socially awkward. You would guess that he might be on the autism spectrum. He
yes,
is so socially awkward. So,
yeah,
yeah, go ahead.
and Tammy, they by accident, Craig kind of connects with a new neighbor named Austin, who kind of befriends him. Tammy really pushes it. Um, and then Craig goes over to Austin's house fairly early in the movie to meet the rest of Austin's friends. It goes poorly, to say the least. Um, Craig does some really inappropriate, not horribly inappropriate, but just socially awkward things. And Austin clearly cuts off the friendship, and um, Craig doesn't handle that well, and the movie kind of spirals from there because Craig is constantly fantasizing about getting the relationship back together. He's fantasizing about and working in ways to try to make Austin like him again,
Yeah.
and the rest of the movie is really kind of one scene after the other of Craig awkwardly trying to put this relationship back together. Is
Yeah.
basically, yeah,
Yeah. And it's very strange. And it does, like you said, it blurs the line, I think, between reality and fantasy a lot.
yeah,
Um, to the point where there's times where you're not sure if what's happening is actually happening.
yes, yeah.
Um, it's like I said, it's a strange film. I wanted to like it, but I'm not sure if I do. You know what I mean? Like I kind of wanted to like it, but then it was just like I don't know, it made me crawl in my skin a little bit, you know?
Yeah, I get the sense that the guy who plays Craig is becoming very popular, but he's becoming popular. in real life becoming popular, but
Mhm.
by being kind of an awkward figure in things he does. Because there's a show coming up with him that HBO is gonna platform, and it feels like it's just a version of the movie. You know?
Yeah, it almost, I mean, without sort of the comedy edge, it almost has the feel of Mr. Bean,
Yeah.
if you will.
Or I thought,
Without it being deliberately funny.
yeah. Or I thought about the show that's also on HBO, Nathan for You, where this guy basically does he puts himself in real life situations and then he becomes extremely awkward and he requires everybody in the real life situation to deal with him and then they film it. And again, part of what's interesting to me is I realized watching this film that I don't know if it's because I grew up being bullied or just have a soft spot for because of that for people that get treated poorly. These movies that are supposed to be cringe movies where you kind of laugh at the awkwardness, I always struggle with it. Like
Yeah.
it's very hard for me because I'm just like I just want him to be liked.
I think, and you touched on another theme here, in our list, right? When you said this desire to be a hero or to be loved. I mean, I
Yeah,
think you can really relate a lot of that to social media
yeah,
and the click farming and that sort of thing.
yeah,
There's almost a sense of that in Craig, even though it's not about social media.
yeah,
It's about this neighbor friend who's also a local weatherman. Uh,
yeah.
but he's just desperately wants to be loved by this guy because they had one little adventure that took him out of his comfort zone,
Yes.
you know?
And even like the evening when he comes over and meets all of Austin's friends, to me, it's really interesting. It's like this amazing uh, experience where all of these people seem to get along. They really care for one another, and it's like it's a really kind of a almost Hallmark version of like a friend group, right? That's the experience Craig has, and yet they won't let him in that group and he desperately wants that. And to me that is part of human nature is we desperately seek validation. We desperately want to be part of a larger community.
Longing,
And
yeah.
yeah, and we go out of our way to seek that. And when we're denied that, I do think it has a very twisting effect on who we are.
Yeah. Yeah, it's it is an interesting, I don't want to call it slice of life kind of film, but it is really it's an honest look at
Yeah,
what our society is, right? And what it is becoming, particularly with social media, I think, which is a little scary. I mean, you and I are, we grew up before all of that.
yes.
Like I've often said, thank God there were no cell phone cameras when I was in my teens and early 20s because
Yeah.
bad. But it is, I don't know, it's an indictment, really, right? It's an indictment of what our society is becoming in a kind of an awkward way through this film, but I think it still says that.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, the kind of the critique you hear about social media a lot, which I think there's some fairness to it, is that we're losing the ability to nurture relationships one on one, and in person.
yeah,
And Craig's kind of the living embodiment of that idea. He
yeah,
literally can't understand how to fit into the collective. He can't
hmm
understand how to nurture relationships.
right.
Um,
And
yeah,
it's in every part of his life. It's in this friendship, it's
yeah,
in his job, it's in his home,
yeah,
it's really in even with his wife, he's
yes.
still this kind of awkward, you know, and you think at least the one person in the world that you could have that not awkward space with would be your spouse, you know. But
Yeah.
um, what else? This is because this film had so much.
Yeah. I mean, to me, the boundaries issues is interesting to kind of circle back to of this
Yeah,
idea of,
sure.
you're right, every character can't can't form good boundaries with other people,
Yeah,
in one way or the other. It's really awkward. Tammy constantly brings up her ex.
right.
Um,
And
and
and she has an odd relationship with their son where like, it's almost like overly affectionate relationship with
yeah,
their son.
yes, yeah, and um, then of course Austin can't really develop. What's interesting is as much as Craig desperately wants to be part of Austin's friend group, for some reason Austin has a horrible time becoming a part of his new morning TV show and becoming um, connected with that group of coworkers. And so again, it's this idea of we don't know how to we don't understand kind of the differences in relationships, and that's kind of, you get that in this movie too, is Tammy doesn't understand, you're married, you're no longer going to hang out with your ex-boyfriend. It's just kind of the way that choice goes, you know.
Like look, you might have an occasional conversation
Yeah,
or Facebook exchange with
yeah,
your ex, but you
yeah,
don't go hang out with them. That's weird.
yes. um but again, it's this idea of boundaries that we all struggle with, right? The church struggles with, about how to make
Mhm.
boundaries between pastors and clergy.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've had this experience, but um, there's been a couple times that I've mentioned to parishioners that, like, I was taught in seminary, you do not form friendships in your congregation. You're friendly with them and you treat them well, but they're not your friends. And
Right.
I've seen that to some parishioners at different times at different churches. And I think all of the times I've said that, there's been like this horror back at me. Like, you don't consider me your friend? Or why would you do that? And I'm like, because that's not my relationship here.
Right.
That's not my role here. And I do think we blur the lines sometimes about, in this setting, I am your pastor. I am not your friend. In this setting, I'm your doctor. I'm not your friend.
Right.
And again, that kind of comes to this idea of our society is failing to recognize there are boundaries in certain situations that shouldn't be dropped. Like,
Yeah, and I agree with you. I've had that issue in that, yeah, like you don't what one of mine, it wasn't really seminary that taught me that, it was one of my clergy mentors who said you don't elevate one of the sheep out of the flock,
yeah,
that sort of thing. And it's the reality, the difficult reality is that's hard to do. It's
yes,
really hard to do because look, there are some people you're going to vibe with. There's some people you're going to connect with more than others. And so they're going to feel more like friends than others,
yeah,
But I have told everyone, like, we love the parsonage that we live in right now. Okay. It's right across the street from the church. It has a lovely porch. We sit out front in the summertime a lot.
yeah,
And I have told people, if we're sitting out front, anybody, you want to come by, sit down, have a talk, whatever, I'm open to that. It doesn't necessarily mean that, somebody stops by. That's, oh, now we're friends, like
yeah,
it is, it's a challenging line to walk, I think. Um, but again, it's about boundaries.
yeah.
Yeah.
I thought an interesting dynamic. This is kind of how the movie, at least for me, has come across as being sold. Is it's a dissection of male friendship. Um, And so I was going to ask you, what do you think about like that hangout scene where they do all these weird things, like they fight each other,
The
you know,
boxing
and
thing, yeah.
yeah, they box each other, you know, um, and
I will okay. I see what you're saying there, and I kind of agree with it in that that is the way, like with my group of friends, my the guy friends that I go and hang out with. That's a regular thing. We bust each other's stones constantly.
yeah,
You know, it's a guy thing. And if there's one of the guys brings a girlfriend, like we go to a hockey game, one of the guys brings a girlfriend, it's a different environment.
yeah,
We don't treat each other because, you know,
yeah,
so and so's got a girl with him. Okay, well now we're not going to do that.
yeah,
So yeah, I get that. But what is the terminology you want to use? The bro code? I
yeah,
mean, I don't know. It's a guy thing. It's what I tell my wife, when I go and hang out with Scott and Mike and it's a guy thing. We talk to each other differently than, and it absolutely between us guys,
mhm,
we don't take any of that seriously. We know how much we care about each other.
yeah,
That it's almost like terms of endearment, the way that we treat each other. And other people would look at it and go, that's gross, but it's just I don't know, it's just a guy thing.
yeah. I do think it is interesting that you know there is some truth to the fact that men tend to bond without deep conversations, and um, that there's some strength in that, but there's also some danger in that too. Um, I remember a joke from God, I can't blanking on his David Brian Regan, where he talks about he goes golfing with his friend, and his friend recently got a divorce, and his wife when he comes back, his wife goes, "How how's Dave doing?" And he's like, "Good, is he got new clubs?" And she's like, but is he dating someone? He goes, I don't know. She was like, didn't you spend like 3 hours with him? Like, and this idea of that guys have a tendency not to talk. And there's some danger in that, but there's also that's part of how guys also, I think, in a lot of ways function. You know,
And I've had that very experience with it. My closest friend, my good buddy, he's been divorced a couple of times, and he's dating somebody right now, and that's been kind of an off and on thing. And, we'll get together, and my wife will say, well, how's he doing? He's good. Well, is everything okay with the girlfriend? I guess. You didn't ask? No, we don't talk about it. If he wants to talk about it, we'll talk about it. But if he don't bring it up, I don't either. It's not my job to butt into his business.
yeah.
I said, if you want to know, you have his number, give him a call.
Um, I also thought an interesting part of this movie was the idea of letting things go. Like Craig gets turned down by Austin to be his friend.
Hmm.
And the movie really, honestly, what I say about 20 minutes into the movie, Austin asks Craig not to be his friend anymore. I mean that. It's about 20, 25 minutes into the movie, of like an
Yeah.
hour and a half movie. And the rest of the movie is Craig not letting go of the fact that Austin's no longer going to be his friend. And
Yeah.
it even ends with Craig clearly not letting that go to the point where he literally crashes into Austin's car and creates a scene at his house and gets arrested. So like it's so
At
this
least we think he gets arrested. We're not
yes,
sure if that's the case.
that's true. That's true. Because we have so many flashbacks or fantasy scenes in here, it's
Right.
hard to know. But I do think it's interesting that I think part of social media culture in a lot of ways is not letting stuff go. I don't, how many
Mm.
times I tell people all the time, I never respond on social media. I did it once, it blew up. I have never done it again. So if someone says something I don't like or puts a negative post up or makes an even a nasty comment on something I put up, I literally will call them or ask them face to face. I do not address it on social media. And I think it's part of the reality that
It's
we
like having a fight in public, though, isn't it?
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
and look, we're already public personas.
yeah.
Can you afford to
And
have a fight in public?
no.
No.
And I do think part of our culture now that's gotten us in trouble is people can't let go of disagreements. They can't let go of the fact that somebody doesn't like them anymore, or somebody treated them badly. They can't just go like, well, that person's wrong, you know, um, or I'm just going to let this alone, and that person will be them and I'll be me. It's almost like we've gotten to the point where you either have to agree with me or I have to hate you. And there's an element of that. I don't know if that's what the writer and director was trying to get at it, but part of Craig's problem is he just can't let go of the fact that Austin doesn't want to be his friend. Like, that sucks. I wish that wasn't the case, but that's the way Austin wants it, and so I'm just going to leave this alone.
You can't. Yeah, you
Yeah,
can't do it.
yeah,
Um, and again, that circles back to boundaries, doesn't it?
yeah,
Like,
yeah. It does.
like Austin drew that boundary, you need to respect it. You can't. Well, you know. Um, yeah. Okay. What else? You you talked about that scene, because there's almost a happy ending
Yes,
in the film
yes,
where Craig kind of gets it together, and Tracy, his wife, stops going with the ex-boyfriend, and there's maybe
yeah,
going to be this happy resolution. And then because Craig can't let it go, he loses his mind. He
yeah,
speeds down the street, wrecks his new van on the speed bump that he had the town install
yeah,
in order to try to wreck Austin's car. It's like, dude, you had it. You
yeah,
you were there. You were at the finish line, and you turned around and threw up on yourself or something. I mean,
yeah.
it's like,
Well,
oh,
it's like what's been happening in football the last couple of weeks. They keep dropping ball or keep letting balls go right before they cross the finish line, right? Or
oh
the
yeah, Arizona did that
the
on
end zone.
Sunday. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But that idea of um, I don't know. I think it's just kind of interesting about the idea of so much of our lives are hampered by us, you know. And
Our
I think
own
that's
worst enemy, right?
yes, I think that's part of an interesting dynamic of this movie is this idea of we can't get out of our own way, and that is a tenet of Christianity. Is part of our issue is recognizing that stop we continue getting in the way of the Spirit's work, right? And so, I mean, that was the big tenets. I'm about to start a sermon series about the general principles of Methodism, you know, and that's part of those tenets is start your day with reflecting on how can I not do harm? How can I do good? And how can I stay in love with God? And keep realizing that doing that work is going to free you in so many ways because it'll allow God to clearly move through you.
Yeah. Yeah, get out of your own way, so to speak. Yeah. And I think, look, I will say this from the perspective of a recovering perfectionist. Okay. There was a long time in my life when I felt like I had to do everything perfectly.
Mhm.
And if I didn't do everything perfectly, everything was going to fall apart.
Yeah.
And it took a long time for me to figure out that I don't have to be perfect because ain't nobody is. Only one person ever was. And that's who I depend on. So,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
but it's a hard thing. And I think as Christians, we're as susceptible as anybody to fall into that trap of I've got to make everything perfect. No, commit it to God, commit it to the Spirit, commit it to, the work of Christ in your life and let that work.
Mhm.
You know, I'm not going to be the first one to tell you it's not easy,
No,
but it is the challenge of living this Christian faith. Wow, boy, did we go theological on this.
I know. We found depths in this movie that.
That I don't think the movie had planned, at least, right?
Well, I wanted to ask you. I would be curious to talk to the writer because I found really fascinating the fact that he has this religious experience using um, psychedelics, but there are quite a few religions around the world that use psychedelics to have religious experiences.
Right.
But his religious experience isn't a mountaintop experience. It isn't going to the third level of heaven as Paul talks about in a letter he writes in actually in the New Testament. He literally goes to Subway and
Yeah.
orders a sandwich. And I wonder, do you feel like that's some kind of critique about modern society that like our religious experience is so convoluted in kind of consumerism that we couldn't have a mountaintop experience? We would simply just go somewhere and order something.
You know what? It's hard to argue that point. Okay. It
Yeah,
would be difficult to argue against what you just said because I know so many people who are, okay. My oldest daughter now lives in South Carolina.
yeah,
When she comes up here to New Jersey, which she's up here right now,
yeah,
one of the first things we have to do is go to Wawa so she can get iced tea.
yeah,
You know, when we went on vacation in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee,
yeah,
we had to make a side trip over to Bucky's in Sevierville. So
yeah,
I get it. Like it's one of those, there's almost this, well, these are destination. Why is a why is a grocery store
yeah,
a destination,
yeah,
other than just for a routine an errand?
yeah,
Why is it, oh, we've got to go to Bucky's? I mean, Bucky's is cool. They do things that a lot of other gas station convenience store type of places don't do,
yeah.
but destination, you know,
Yeah, I thought about, and I may get in some trouble with some of our viewers, and I'm sorry if I do, but I really don't get Disney. I don't I don't understand. I've gone to the parks. They're beautiful. They're no question the best amusement parks I've ever been to in terms of
Mhm.
quality and all that. I don't understand why you would ever choose going to one of their parks over going to like the Grand Canyon or going to Niagara Falls or going to a mountain range. I really don't understand why you would choose a theme park over, a naturally beautiful place.
Well, I'll tell you, 5 or 6 years ago, I would have argued with you about that.
Yeah.
But the reality is Disney has priced my family right out.
Yeah, that's
We
that's
can't
another.
even afford to go anymore. And my kids are a little older and they're not really interested in going. But when we went, I can explain why.
Yeah.
We went because it was an experience you could not get anywhere else, because they really did take care of families.
Oh yeah.
And there was enough of an immersive kind of experience that it was worth it.
Yeah.
Yes, it was, even when we were going, was an expensive vacation. Um, but it was worth it because you made memories there that you couldn't have made anywhere else. But um, but now that's not worth it. It's just not. I can go to Pigeon Forge and Gatlinburg and make great memories with my family. And like this year, we rented a cabin with a pool, and we had a grand time. And all that was good. Um, and we spent a whole lot less than we would have had we gone to Disney.
Yeah.
So but I get it. I do. I get it. Um, so look, we're getting a little close on time.
Yeah.
Um, as far as, final thoughts on friendship.
It's a weird movie. Um, it it's by far one of the least enjoyable ones I've had, but some of that's my anxiety around people being mistreated, and I
Sure.
recognize that.
Sure.
So I know a lot of people that like cringy stuff, and this is a cringy movie. It's kind
It's
of
a,
an
oh, it's a
awkward
cringy
movie.
movie.
Yeah,
Is that? Um, I think it's okay if you're, if this is your kind of thing. Uh, like I said, I kind of wanted to like it, but it just kind of made me crawl on my skin a little bit too. So, hmm, anyway, so as far as what to watch next week, I had a thought,
okay.
and just because, I watch a lot of YouTube videos that rank, the 10 best songs ever used in a movie, or, whatever, that kind of thing. And there was a film that came up in one of those lists that I watched, and I thought, yeah, and I've heard a lot of good stuff about this film, and I don't think I've ever seen it.
Okay. So
So, how do you feel about watching Almost Famous?
I like that movie a lot. I'd be glad to see it again. So yeah,
Okay,
absolutely.
so then let's watch Almost Famous for next week. I'm pretty sure I haven't seen it because I read a brief, like a brief synopsis of it, and I went, it doesn't ring a bell. I don't think I saw that film. So, um, I know it's kind of a pseudo musical. It's about a band, an up and coming band, and a young journalist who's trying to follow the band and get the story of their
Yeah, loosely based
rise.
on Cameron Crowe's life. Yeah,
There you
young.
go.
Yeah,
And Cameron Crowe directed it, wrote and
wrote it
directed
and
it.
directed it. Yeah.
Okay, so so we'll take a look at that next week. I think it's on Prime
Yeah,
as a rental,
I think
so
it might be on HBO Max for free. So
I'll look. Oh, look, I'd rather get it for free.
yeah,
Friends. So next week's film is Almost Famous. If you like to follow along, take a look at that. And until next Friday, keep on finding God in the dark. Take care and God bless. Bye.
right.
Oh, hey, you made it all the way to the end of the video. Well, thanks for watching. We appreciate your support. And friends, if you find anything that's really wonderful or entertaining or helpful in your Christian walk, we want to encourage you to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, share this video with your friends. We publish every Friday morning at 10 a.m. And we hope that you continue to find these videos and these discussions entertaining and informative. Take care and God bless. Bye.